One of the things that's both kind of cool about sports, but also sometimes kind of hard to come to grips with about sports, is that it always keeps moving on. No matter what. The faces, the names, the coaches, the players, they will change. But it always keeps going forward. And when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a perfect example of life goes on. For almost 2 decades, the face of the franchise, for lack of a better phrase, was Big Ben Roethlisberger. Whatever you thought about him, however you viewed him, whatever you thought of him as a player and a person, the reality is he was the Steelers' dude. He was the face of the franchise. He was the leader, or sometimes maybe lack of leader. He was the constant. He's the constant, or was the constant, even more than Mike Tomlin. He predates Tomlin's time in Pittsburgh. So, to think about the Steelers going into 2022 without Big Ben at the helm, absolutely is a weird feeling. Probably for Steelers fans, a welcome one, ready to move on to the next era of Steelers football. I get all of that, but still weird nonetheless. And then, of course, you had the early offseason tragedy with the death of Dwayne Haskins, which absolutely sucks, obviously. This is a young man, what was he, 24, 25 years old? Feels like such an illogical, senseless way for him to die. And, you know, he was one of those ones, maybe he could have been in the mix to potentially have an opportunity to start some games in 2022. Maybe not, but he could have had a shot. And we're never going to find out. And ultimately, we found out that the Steelers go and they bring in Trubisky, but then in the first round they take Kenny Pickett, the kid from Pittsburgh, and you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, the question is going to be not if the Kenny Pickett era is going to begin, but when and how soon. And at least you can say if you're a Steelers fan, whether you were super excited about the Kenny Pickett selection or not, the reality is the organization was clearly making a statement that they were going to move on very quickly from life after Big Ben and try to find that next guy that could be the face of the franchise for the next decade and a half plus. And certainly Mike Tomlin got a lot of praise this season and gets a lot of praise in general. And it's certainly understandable and deserved. Now, I am on record a few years ago thinking that he should have been fired. And based off of the reality of that time, I won't back down from that. Because he's the one, when you had Big Ben at his peak and Antonio Brown at his peak and Le'Veon Bell at his peak, like these were teams that failed to get the job done when they should have. And maybe a guy that was a little better with X's and O's and in-game strategy would have been able to get it done. I won't deny that he's a great leader of men, a great motivator, and does a lot of good things as a head coach, certainly knows the defensive side of football. But he's even as great as accomplishments as he's had, and he's going to be a Pro Football Hall of Fame head coach. He's going into Canton someday. There's no question about that. People look at him taking this team to a 9-8 record in 2022 and never having a losing record as being something to really behold and something that's really special. And in certain respects, yeah, you got to give it up. It absolutely is. That is a hell of a long run of sustained performance. You got so many guys, like you got Nathaniel Hackett in Denver, didn't even make it through his first year as a head coach. Lovie Smith only made it through 1 year as a head coach. The year before that, David Culley made it 1 year. You're talking about guys, where it feels like the average shelf life for an NFL head coach is about 3 to 3.5 years. Mike Tomlin's made it over a decade and a half. It doesn't seem like he's going anywhere anytime soon. And with all of that being said, it does not make him immune from criticism. His decision to start the season with Mitchell Trubisky as QB1 instead of Kenny Pickett was just flat out stupid. There is no defending it. There's no justifying it. There's no argument in favor of it. That is clearly not understanding the name of the game and the mission in 2022. It was to maximize the amount of time that you could give to Kenny Pickett to develop to show what he can or cannot be, to give him that learning experience. It was not to sit there and try to pretend like you're a miracle worker where you can get something more out of Trubisky, or at least he's going to hold you over for a little bit until Pickett's ready. Because ding dong, dumb dicks, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? Trubisky fucking sucks. And there's some Bears fans that still can't come to grip with that. And apparently I think there's some Steelers fans that can't come to grip with that. I'm not saying Pickett's great, but I can't imagine looking at Trubisky and looking at Pickett and feeling like they were really that much different, if any difference at all. Therefore, you go with the guy that you drafted with the 20th overall pick of the damn draft, you morons. Like, sometimes it's not about the number of right decisions you make or the number of decisions you make in general. It's about certain key decisions that you make and whether they are right or wrong. And in the long term, it may not matter. Kenny Pickett may not have been the guy anyways, or he may end up being the guy, and he might be a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the NFL, and things will work out okay. But it's kind of the problem with Mike Tomlin is he does so well in certain respects, and the team does so well that they never truly bottom out, and they never truly start over. You almost get to that point now where you feel like the Steelers are in a really terrible spot because they're kind of stuck in a cycle of mediocrity, and that's where they're at. Now, that said, the coaching job he did late in the season, his team did win 7 of their last 9 games. And you look at that and say, man, for them to go 9-8 with a combination of Trubisky and a rookie quarterback as their starter all year, that's pretty impressive stuff. But then you also look at one of the problems of the Steelers over the years with Big Ben at quarterback was how they would lose to bad teams. And they did that this year, losing to the Patriots, losing to the Browns, losing to the Jets. And you say, well, the Jets weren't a bad team. The Patriots weren't a bad team. They were bad enough where they didn't make the playoffs. These are teams that if the Steelers wanted to get to the playoffs, they should have beaten. And not beating the Browns twice is a problem. Not beating the Jets, not beating the Patriots. Like, you win even 2 of those games, you're sitting there at 11-6, and now you are in the playoffs. Well, they didn't do that. And you look at it and you say, what was the point of all that? Now you got a middle-of-the-road first-round pick. They'll be picking 17th overall in round 1. You still got some questions on that roster. They certainly need to invest in that offensive line. You know, probably one of the most successful things they did in the 2022 season was manage to con a team into giving up a high second-round pick for their third wide receiver. You know, trading Chase Claypool away and being able to get the type of pick they did from the Bears just reeked of dumb desperation for the Bears and a really smart move by the Steelers, frankly. We still got Deontay Johnson and George Pickett, so you got some young weapons for Kenny Pickett to work with. You know, I don't know how great Najee Harris is, but some of that could be a reflection of the offensive line in front of them, definitely needing some work and some upgrades there. That defense took a little bit of what felt like a step back in 2022, but they've still got some key pieces, right? Like, this is a team that, you know, could be better positioned in 2023, especially with Kenny Pickett as the clear and unquestioned starter, which is what he needs to be, but I don't know. Like, are they going to make the type of moves that could potentially put them over the hump a little bit in that division? I'm not so sure about that. You know, it's very possible we could see, especially if Lamar ends up coming back to the Ravens, that the Steelers, you know, could, in theory, not get much worse, but end up being the worst team in the division in 2023. It's certainly possible. I still feel like Tomlin deserved a lot of credit for how this team performed overall, especially the way they rallied the second half of the year. I think he deserves some criticism for how he handled the quarterback situation because, frankly, that was really stupid. It was. It absolutely was. And you look at it, and it was all for naught because they didn't make the playoffs, and they're just toiling right in the middle, and where the hell are they going to go from here? And this is an important question that's going to have to be addressed.